Welcome to Unhinged Outbursts, hosted by William Cannoli. This is episode 5, Cutting Out Church.
All right, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining in on this week's episode. Today we have a very special guest, our first female presence, and still our only female presence, the one who has been introducing the start of every episode. We have Beach Kid SD joining us, and she is a perfect guest today because she and I have very parallel stories that do differ just enough, but we're talking about religion and moving on from the religion we were raised with. So thank you for being here, and how are you doing so far today?
Pretty good. This is a sunny, beautiful day, so pretty good.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course.
So before we go straight into the negative side of everything, I want to try to be a little positive and say, so obviously the topic is how we moved on from our respective religions. Let me try that again. How we moved on from our respective religions. But obviously you have to have something that kind of fills that void, gives you hope, keeps you going. So for you, do you have anything that really does drive it home, or do you have a bunch of just different things throughout your life?
When I was younger and I was heavily in the Mormon religion, I would see throughout or around me, with the people around me, how it helped them, how they would even talk about how it's been the one thing that's filled them with hope, that helps them get through life. I've seen it help many, many people. But for me, it was always my own life, my own self that would kind of fulfill me. I wouldn't need an outside source kind of to give me hope and fulfill me in that way. But I saw the way it helped many people. So I totally respect that when people decide to be religious and believe in a certain religion and they, practice it every day. I think that's great. If it really helps, I mean, don't let anybody stop you, right? But for me, it's been experiencing my life and experiencing this life for myself and figuring out what I need to learn, how I can heal. It's more inside that I'm getting my hope and my, I guess, zest for life.
Yeah, you don't have to rely on an external source.
Right, yeah. It's more healing myself, fulfilling my own needs, fulfilling my desires, fulfilling what I think I should be doing in this life. And that is all. I haven't really needed anything else.
Yeah, so I like that answer, and definitely I feel a lot of the same between us. I know exactly what you're talking about, that you don't find, anything coming from an external source, especially something that may or may not be real, really gives you that gratification that I know other people get, and I do feel the same on that. Nothing is going to make a good time for me,
Right.
So obviously you just mentioned you were raised Mormon. I was raised Catholic, and there's obviously similarities with all the religions, but then there are big differences. And another big difference between you and I is that you had to deal with it from the female perspective. For me, and I'm not saying this to try to get any bonus points, I'm not trying to get laid from this statement, all right? This is something I personally believe in. I always struggled with how women were treated across every single religion, and that was one of the very first stepping stones that made me start to part away from the church. All the terrible shit I went through, I can't imagine having to do it from the female perspective. Especially, I feel like the distance between men and women, that gap is even bigger in the Mormon religion than it is in the Catholic religion. So, good job on making it this far, man.
It was hard, but I got through.
Yeah, I seriously can't imagine that.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a woman in the Mormon religion, you are definitely told one thing your whole life. and that's it. That's it for you. And I've seen growing up that was one thing that I did not like. I felt that there was more to me. I felt that I had so much more to offer the world, but they really instill in you from a very young age to get married, have kids,
And as
and which is
many
all
as
fine,
possible.
and as many as possible. And they really encourage it, even if you're younger. Uh, so when I was turning closer to 18, and I would see my fellow friends around the same age as me turning 18, and it is they either go on their mission or they get married, or after the mission they get married. And it was instant, 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 instant. I mean, it was kind of scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that expectation was being put on me. And I personally, and this is just me personally from how I've grown up, I did not want that. I did not want to get married. I wanted to spend my 20s doing what I wanted to do, traveling, you know, going out with friends, doing things, going to museums, doing things that are beneficial to me and my own like inner childhood, kind of in a way. So that was scary for me just to see that all that pressure and expectations. One of the reasons why when I did turn 18, I left so that I didn't have to feel that expectation at all. Um, as a kid, it's definitely, I just remember being in girls' camp and being with the girls all the time and the same lessons over and over and over and over again with the same ending. And I don't know if it was just me, but sometimes I would look around the classroom and just be like, don't you feel like this is weird? Of course, I would think it to myself, but I don't know why I would do that. But I would just be like, this is, I mean, like, we're more than this. We're more than a housewife. We're more than all of this. Like, I wanted to explore that. And I don't think anybody else around me even thought about that. So I was kind of an odd one out throughout going to church. Anyway.
Yeah, and that is definitely where we're similar because I never ever fit in with anybody, even before I was officially going to Catholic school. Because to get your first communion in the Catholic religion, you have to be going through what they call CCD classes. So I'd be going to regular school, come home, and then have to go to essentially like aftercare church classes. So even in
Yeah.
first and second grade, having to do that shit before I went to Catholic school officially, never fit in there, hated every second of it. I thought all these
Mm-hmm.
people are stupid. And the first time I genuinely remember feeling different and when it came to religion was when they put on Veggie Tales for the first time in that first grade
Oh
class.
my God, Veggie Tales! Yes.
Well, everybody knew what it was, and I'm sitting there watching this like, what the
Yes.
fuck is this?
So stupid.
Yeah, that was so bizarre
Seen it
for
like
me.
today.
I've seen some clips today, and it's still just as bizarre as it was back then.
I can't believe that. I kind of liked that show growing up. I was like, I would get excited to watch it, but if I watch it today, it's like, wow, they really were just
Insane.
throwing that at us and making us, yeah. I mean, it's almost like it's like they're subliminal messaging that into our brains and our subconscious.
Sometimes
Like,
it's not even subliminal. Sometimes it's right out there on the surface.
it is.
Yeah.
It's right out there.
I mean, that is literally the definition of propaganda, all right? I'm not going to go as far as to say it's
Literally, yeah.
brainwashing, but it's definitely propaganda.
Yeah. At least the
Yes,
start of it.
definitely. So it has been that long in my life that I have had a problem with the church. I mean, obviously, VeggieTales doesn't represent an entire religion, but you know, it's part of it. It comes
No.
with it. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And then when I did go to Catholic school, so I will say, side note, to defend the religion, I have had so many people who told me the things that were taught specifically at my Catholic school are not representative of the entire religion, that this church was wrong. But two things to say on that. Number one, this is always a thing that I argued with. If you can have churches within the religion that teach different messages or say different things, then you can keep looking for a church that justifies, racism or sexism or any other problem and say, well, this
Mm-hmm.
church says it's good. And it's all part of the same religion. Whether every other church doesn't agree with them or not doesn't matter. You can still justify
Right.
any horrible thing by finding the right church. And then, secondly, the main priest of my school just became the San Diego Archbishop. So clearly, he does represent the religion really well.
Huh. Okay.
With that being said, one of the earliest problems that I had with the church was, we lost my brother when I was 8. He was 3, so we never had a chance to get him
Mhm.
baptized. And I remember people saying, oh, because he's not baptized, he's going to hell. Who the fuck says that
Oh my
to
gosh.
anybody under any
That is
circumstances
ridiculous.
but
Yeah.
literally a little child?
I very much believe that. That is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure people would totally think that. And oh my god, especially that's not helping.
Yeah, exactly. That's only further dividing me and God by saying that.
Exactly.
So that
Oh
was a big
man.
one. And then as I'm getting older and I went through terrible relationships, which I know I have confided in you in some of them before,
Mhm.
you know, there starts to become that emo period in time, or in life, I mean, and you find out anybody who commits suicide is going to hell. At least that's what we were told. And it's like,
Right.
what
That's
the
we're
fuck
told.
is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. First of all, the whole concept of hell seems so outrageous and ridiculous to me, especially when it's so vague that anybody can put whatever they want into it.
Yeah.
Anybody can say, "Oh, you know, commit suicide, or you, like the Mormon religion, drink coffee, you're going to hell."
Really? I didn't know
The
that.
people can yes, the people can literally make up anything. Hell is such a vague, and so is heaven.
Yeah.
It's so confusing, and people can stretch it, they can mold it, they can turn it into whatever they want to validate themselves and what they think is right and how you should live. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That whole thing, threatening, you're going to go to hell if you do this. Mormons, they don't like to drink coffee, or they can't drink coffee because it's caffeine, and or any hot drinks of that matter.
I
That's
did
just
not know
one
that.
out of many, many weird rules. And it's always you're gonna go to hell. You're gonna go to hell. You might go to hell. If you do this, you might go to hell. And I'm like, what the? Because I'm
That's
drinking
insane.
coffee. Oh my gosh, it would confuse the shit out of me. I would worry about every little thing as a kid. I'm pretty sure it created my anxiety. So
Yeah,
now
I'm
I just
sure it did.
fucking have anxiety all the time. And it I would worry about it all the time as a child. I would think about it, be like, oh my God, I'm going to do this wrong. I'm going to do that wrong. I was afraid to have, weird thoughts. I was afraid that God was reading my mind, because that's what they would tell me at church. God hears your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I never had this exact part of it, because anybody that, qualified as a grandfather in my life either had passed away before I got to this point or was kind of checked out. But I can't imagine having somebody who is such a stern, leader. Hold on. Yeah, have somebody that's such a stern leader of the family, sit down a little kid and say, if you have impure thoughts, you're gonna go to hell. I mean, that is such absolutely anxiety, but even deeper than that, like
It's
it's driving a wedge between you and somebody who's supposed to be a role model.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of manipulating, number one, I feel. And that person is now going to spend probably a good chunk of their lives, especially after that initial conversation, thinking about that, overthinking about that. And it's not going to be good for them to grow as a soul. Like, isn't that what they want? But I don't think that that would piss me off. I remember being told that, and even as a child, it would just make me upset because I would just wonder what kind of God are we freaking worshiping here, guys?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what is going on? Like, at that time, it was something I very much kind of believed in, but it was slowly chipping away at it. And then just seeing how so many people in the church, especially us women, we would kind of confide in each other, and seeing what women would put up with
Yeah.
just because divorce is so heavily, they're so against it. Even my own mom was afraid to get divorced, like, but it's, you see it and they confide in each other, and that there's nothing they can do. They can't, because they're afraid to go to hell or be treated badly by the other church members.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that, I would say mainly in my teenage years, because when I was a kid, I did believe in it, but some of it would piss me off. And then as a teenager, started to separate myself from it, and mentally, because I had to go. I didn't really have a choice. Like, within my family, was very strict, very Mormon. You went to church. That was expected of you. And so I would go. And of course I would make the best of it. I make the best of that everything I do. But I began to mentally just not be there when I'm there. Like, I just didn't believe in it.
Yeah.
So
So I think the biggest two differences, like I already said, is that I got to go through it from the man's perspective, which is definitely
right.
different. But other than that, I think that for me, all the hard hitting things that make you have to like sit down and look at the religion, they came much more close together and much younger in life. I think that you and I ultimately end up in the same spot, but pretty much by the time I became a teenager, I was already done with religion. I mean, I remember
Hmm.
sitting in 8th grade and actually arguing with one of the kids' parents to their face about gay marriage. All right, so it was pretty intense, and I always felt so uncomfortable. And the reason that that came up wasn't just because I'm going around debating people, but because our church actually had huge yes on whatever it was, Prop 8 signs all the way around the
Hmm.
church, and I couldn't believe that shit. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no reason to have that up for us. Now, if you have it on the church side, okay, that's fine. But where these signs were on the school side of the church. There's no reason that you're explaining to a kindergartner that, oh yeah, gay people are fucking terrible. I could not believe that shit.
Yeah. I agree. I same with the Mormon church. It was bad like that. The way they would talk about it, the way I remember I went to a meeting with my mom, um, because she was a Relief Society man boss or whatever. I don't even know what to say. But they talked about what the Mormon church feels about gay marriage. And then they were asking people, what they thought about it, da 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 da, or can you explain it more? Like, what do we believe? Because apparently everybody's got to get together and figure it out. They got to fucking get together and figure it out. What are we gonna say, guys? What are we gonna say when people ask? So they'd start talking about gay marriage, and they start talking about, like, do we accept it? And people, a lot of them were saying no, but the leader that was there was saying, well, the Mormon church has officially accepted it, but if you act on it, it's bad. So if you are like a gay person and you want to join the church, that's fine. But if you act on it, if you marry, if you act on it at all, that's bad. Which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's the most bullshit
I was
answer ever.
I was like at least 16. It was like, what? Are you crazy?
That is
No,
the most
absolutely.
diplomatic, playing both sides of the fence answer possible.
Oh my gosh, it just they constantly contradict themselves. It's like they
Yeah.
don't even know. They don't even know what they believe in. They're just trying to stay a certain way. They don't want change. They want it to be a certain way,
Yeah, absolutely.
and they won't accept it. So I can't say what the church believes in now because that was 11 to 12 years ago. But that's how it was then. So
Well, I know the Catholic Church now supposedly says that they're accepting of gay people now. That's like when the Pope came in, that was one of the big things that he wanted to change that up. But then I've also heard that he is forgiving of pedophiles. So I don't know if that really levels
yeah,
out.
yeah, not even that alone was
Yeah.
a good enough reason to leave.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
alone,
But
and that's not even
all those stories, like when it became daily news of like, oh, there's another priest over here, I had already pretty much
yeah,
been way separated by that point. So,
yeah.
and
And you're
luckily I
probably
was
happy
never
about your
molested.
decision of leaving.
What was that?
You're probably happy about your decision
Oh
of
yeah,
leaving.
yeah, definitely,
Hearing about all
definitely,
that.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, yeah, I've never been molested, but I mean, I can't say for sure. I don't know anybody that was molested by somebody in the religion. So that
Right. Yeah.
that is not a shadow of doubt that anyone should have.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I don't doubt it that it's happened in the Mormon church at all.
Yeah.
It's happened everywhere. It's not, yeah.
Right. Right. You have
It's
pieces of shit in every
it's,
single walk of life, so why would religion
yeah.
be any different?
No, and in fact, it's almost like a great cover up for them. It's almost
Yep.
like they can hide in it.
Yep. Yeah. The worst
So, yeah.
people that I've ever met in my entire life are people that are very devout to the church. I mean, that school
Yeah,
that I went
absolutely.
to, there was such incredible bullying. And not only, so there was cyberbullying, there was, actual verbal abuse, but there was actual physical abuse too. And I remember one time this kid actually punched me in the gut, and I knew everybody else was against me because I wasn't, in the religion. Everybody knew by that point. So when the teacher came
Right.
over, she knew damn well what happened. She just wanted me to admit it. I'm not gonna admit to anything. I know it's just gonna make my life harder, so I just freaking ate it. And she knew damn well. I basically ended up saying that I fell, and she's all, "You fell, really?" and was pressing me. I'm like, "What the fuck you want me to say? You know what's gonna
Right.
happen." So, yeah, worst fucking people
Okay,
in the
I'm
world.
starting. Yeah, I'm starting to remember what you would tell me about your school because you went to a Catholic school. I
Yeah.
think they, you know, very happy I didn't have to do that, but I did have to go to Mormon seminary, I believe it was called,
Well, I have to
where
interrupt
it
you
was a
because it's gonna
class.
make me upgrade Zoom. Otherwise, it's gonna cancel my call. All right, so I had to make an adjustment there because apparently you have to pay for Zoom. That's something I did not know. Anyway, so like you just said, can't talk about the church without talking about pedophiles. So that's where we were at. Yeah, that is something that is still blowing my mind to this day that you can just justify that. Anybody that is in the church, as soon as they don't see an issue with that, I really have a hard time, seeing any points that they make, no matter how valid they are.
Yeah,
So that's something that's just has to go. I mean, you can't defend a fucking pedophile anymore.
no, absolutely not. It's hard to take anything else they believe seriously.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'd say, luckily for the Mormon religion, that's definitely not something that is well known. But
Yeah.
then you do have the other side of polygamy and all the little girls being forced into marriage and sometimes having their tubes
Mhm.
tied. So I don't know which one's necessarily worse.
I don't know either. And I haven't kept up with the church for over 10 years. So I don't know what it is like now, but I have a feeling it's changed a little bit because they seem to change their beliefs and rules a lot
Yeah.
over the years.
I
Because a
think you
lot of
have to.
them would say, oh, we're not polygamy anymore. That's not
Right.
what we do anymore. And even though it still exists in some areas, something they had to change, and they're still doing that. And
Yeah.
it's something that I've noticed, and I didn't really like that growing up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who would like that. That's a special kind of person.
Exactly. Right.
All right, so we've touched on a lot so far. I think this has definitely been an interesting conversation. It got pretty serious. We've also made some jokes. But, one thing that does interest me is there anything that could make you go back to when you're going to church every week? Like, is there anything that would convince you of that level of commitment?
Wow, good question. I don't think there would be anything. It would have to be like I've come at such a low point in my life that I need something like that. But I highly doubt that I would go back to that church. If anything, I'd go to a different one. Truth be told,
So
I would just
that
find
is
a
an
different
interesting point. That is
You know
such
what
an
I mean? Like
interesting point.
I wouldn't go back to that one.
Right.
I would if I really was starting to like, okay, I need to believe in something, then which I don't believe in nothing. I just don't believe in what the Mormons believe. I
Gotcha.
think and probably most churches, but if I were to be like, I need to believe in a God, or I want to strengthen my faith or whatever, I would look for a different church, personally.
So that is something that
Mhm.
I'm glad you brought up because I was gonna forget it, but when I decided that okay, Catholicism is not for me and I got no part of this, I did look into other religions. And this is a weird
Mhm.
statement, but honestly, from what I could gather, if there was anyone that I was probably going to fall into, it would have been Judaism. They seem to have the
Ah,
most normal set of rules, but even them, they're still batshit
I see what you're
crazy.
saying. I see what you're saying. I was once interested almost because at that age I had a friend. Um, when I was around 18, 19, I began to explore because I left the church. I stopped going to church. I moved out, completely left, and I started exploring, other. Had friends where I was learning other religions and seeing what else was out there, but I still didn't really find anything that was for me.
Yeah, definitely.
And I began to feel and maybe believe in my own way I am an independent thinker, I guess. And that's kind of just how I've been ever since.
Yeah, so both of the things we're talking about kind of tie in together. I asked you, is there anything to make you go back? And for me, there may be a way, but I'm definitely not going to be so committed where I go every week. And it's not feasible. Life is too chaotic to have to wake up every single Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, that you started exploring other options, and I have dabbled in that, like I mentioned. But there is nothing ever that could make me believe in the Mormon faith or the Muslim faith
Mm-hmm.
or any of those things. Just they're so extreme. I mean, you think about politics and how extreme just being on the conservative side is, and then to think that there are so many people in those religions that look down on the modern conservative because they're too liberal. That is just insane.
Some of them I definitely do not, I would not be a part of. I have met people who are uh, of other religions, and I totally, totally respect it. If they choose that, I want, especially if I care about the person, I want that person to be happy. And I've always thought, like, when you pray, that is like meditation. Like, that's a wonderful thing.
Hmm.
Keep doing that. It's just the what they're doing and who they're asking, and that all, it just has never sit right with me. I just don't think there's a white guy in the sky mad at everybody.
Right. And on
Or
that note,
whatever.
I would just like to say, if God is a woman, I have a much bigger problem with her, because what the fuck's happening? I can understand a guy having these stupid
What's
rules,
going on? Yeah,
but
right. I just don't think if there is a God, it's not human-like. It's its own entity. It's its own. I don't know. And I choose to be okay with not knowing. I think
interesting.
it's okay to not know. That's how I've always been. And I think that's why I don't need to cling on to anything. I'm okay with not knowing. It's about what's right now, what I'm experiencing right now. And if I meet people who, think how I live my life is totally wrong, then that's what they think. Doesn't affect me.
That's interesting. So for me,
What about you? Yeah, okay.
I definitely there's times where I am truly an atheist, where I don't believe there's anything out there. And then there's specific moments where it feels like I'm the main character, and in those moments that I think about, like, well, this can't be a coincidence, something has to be making this happen, right? Like, so for instance, just the other day there was something really small that happened, really insignificant, but basically there was a moment where I can choose to be, not necessarily rude, but just not helpful to this person that's really being annoying and not helping me. Or I can do something nice. And I was kind of weighing the options in my head. And I swear to you, I had the thought, because this was alongside my job, and I just needed a few more sales to reach my goal for the day. And I had the thought, if
Mhm.
I do help this lady, I'm going to reach my goal. At the last 5 minutes, I had X amount come in that put me over the goal perfectly. And I was just like, I knew it. I knew that was going to happen if I decide to get karma on my side. So in that moment, like I
Right.
said, I'm the main character. Like, I wrote that and it happened, and I can't be controlling that.
Right.
So I have my moments of doubts then. But then also there comes shit like not even something as significant as losing people for no reason, because death follows me everywhere. Um, but like having our truck stolen, that means so much to us. Fucking why? How?
Mm.
How the fuck can that happen? How can anything justify that? Why does that have to fucking happen? How does that help
Right.
anybody? And it's in those moments where I'm like, no, I can't believe there's anything out there that's watching over us. And if there is, fuck you. And that's what I struggle with. Because there's definitely times where I'm like, I want to make sure, like, my girlfriend's going on a train trip and I'm nervous about the train. So like I don't pray necessarily, but I'm thinking like look, dude, if you are there, just don't fucking do anything stupid this time, right?
So
But
true.
as soon
Yeah,
as
do you
it's
ever find
over,
yourself like praying? Mhm. Sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, as soon as it's over, I'm right back to like, yeah, that's right, fuck you, motherfucker. But there's just enough doubt that I can't say 100%.
Who knows? Yeah, like not believing in nothing. Like kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like
think it is hard to
I
say there's
wouldn't
nothing.
say, right, I wouldn't say that I'm completely atheist. I am more, like I said before, I don't care if I'm wrong. I don't care if I don't know. I don't need to know. Because what's important to me is right now. And I wish some people around me would think that too, but that's okay. Because people bring up that a lot, especially where I work. They bring that up, and I respect it. I go along with it, and sometimes I'll even pray with them because, I'm just respecting it. But to me, it's more a meditation session. Like,
Yeah. You're in a much
that's how
more
I've always
healthy place than
felt.
I am with it. There's no way I'm
Yeah,
joining
I've thought
anybody
about
else.
it a lot over the years. I've thought about it a lot over the years. Definitely when I was 18 through about 24, 25, I was definitely battling with it a lot, and I pretty much rejected everything, and I pretty much you could say an atheist, I guess, but I more just wasn't thinking about it anymore. And which kind of was freeing in a way.
Yeah, it definitely is
I
freeing.
didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to worry about it. I only worried about, living my life. And I found that when I am kind to people, it's because of me and not because of a religion or because someone told me to. And that, to me, when I meet people who are kind and they don't have a religion, to me, they are genuine. Because
Right.
they're just doing it to do it.
Right.
And it's a part of who they are. They're not even trying. So, like you said earlier, sometimes you meet really, really shitty people who believe in the church. And I've definitely encountered that many times. But I've also met people who are shitty. I don't even know what they believe in,
Right.
So there's shitty people everywhere. But to justify, kindness with religion when it should be coming from you.
Right.
Not with the ultimate goal of going to heaven. Whatever happens, happens. Are you a good person today, right now, with everything you have right now? To me, that's all that matters. And now that I am almost 30, I've come to terms with myself and with not having to be right.
So that
And
is
kind of just
really
slowly figuring
healthy.
out.
That's really healthy and really
I think so.
interesting because, like I said, I feel like it kind of hit me earlier, and I grew apart sooner than you did, but you are probably at a better place right now because for me, two things that drive me fucking crazy. Number one, my thing is anytime I interact with somebody or there's somebody like in politics that I know is just a worthless human being, I am so pissed off that I don't believe in a hell. Because somebody that does believe in heaven or hell can look at that bad person and say, at least they're gonna fucking get theirs. For me, I'm like, well, that person's gonna get away with it for their whole life and there's no punishment. And that fucking torments me.
It's true that I feel that way too sometimes. Me too. And that's where that, having that religion as that thing that you cling on to, it helps. It helps in instances like that where you're like, oh, I know you're going to burn in the depths of hell. And that satisfies you. You're like, okay, in a way. Or if someone you really care about passes away and you have that mentality, oh, they're in a better place. They're in heaven. And that, soothes you. And in those cases, I do not blame people. But my outlook on life is very weird, very much out there. I've been thinking about this a lot throughout the years, and I guess I would say I'm at a healthy spot. I never even thought about it like that, so that's cool. But it's always been an interesting topic of conversation for me. Like, I never want to stop talking about it. Like, I always want to dissect it, learn about it. Like, if I am learning about another religion, it's just to see, because it's culture, and sometimes it can be beautiful. So, but sometimes it can be really fucking ugly.
Yeah.
And you got to see both parts of it and really decide if that's truly for you. But I don't know, whatever you decide is what you decide. Just be kind because that's who you are. But I don't know. I'm going off topic. I'm like,
no, it's on topic because that's another thing that I can't do. Like you are very much okay with everybody having their own choice. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, no, fuck you. especially when it comes to something extreme like, a child getting molested or hurt or forced to marry somebody,
Right.
and that spans multiple religions. Or when it comes to something as crazy as like in Hinduism. Now, to be fair, this is not something that they do now, but in Hinduism it used to be that if you're married and the husband dies, the wife has to kill herself to be with the husband. Fuck that. You should
Yeah.
never ever be
No.
allowed to have that belief. Fuck you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, I
No,
I
what
am
100%. I totally.
but I
I
I
don't think
can't
I'm thinking about it in that way.
right.
I could just be I could just be being too nice about it. Um,
Well, I think it's the
but
benefit for you because I can't separate that. So anybody I see that is like pro
mhm.
religion, I'm only seeing that worse extreme stuff that A might not have been practiced in the
Yeah,
last 100 years, or B might only be in specific parts of the world, not even necessarily to the religion.
right? Absolutely. I've definitely I've definitely will separate myself from that person. I've definitely met people, they seem really cool at first, and then I see that they're heavily religious in certain ways or in certain religions. I respect it, but I'm probably not gonna,
That's a,
further relationship or
that's the thing
have a
though. I can't
conversation with them.
respect
Or
it.
even if it's just an acquaintance, yeah, if it's just somebody like who I work with or somebody around me, I'm just gonna be like, I'm just not gonna, you know, talk to that person. I mean, I will, but I'm not gonna have them in my circle. I guess a lot
Yeah.
of the people in my circle are, um, some of them are religious, but they're not hardcore about it. They almost never mention it, almost. But a lot of them definitely are independent thinkers, I would say, as well. Whether they think of something totally different. My boyfriend's kind of the same way with other religions, and how intense they can be. Uh, yeah. he he also agrees with that. Like,
I wonder if that's a male
so
thing.
I don't know if it's a male thing. I know many women who are like that too, very much.
Mm.
Uh, I want to get back to um our religion itself, like them being Mormon and being Catholic. And I'm curious to know, like, how old you were when you actually left. I don't think I know how old you were.
So, like I said, pretty much by the time I hit a teenager, that was it for me. But I guess you can't say that officially because I still went to church a few times after that. So I think officially, like I'm done. Even if I attended church after that, is when you turn 18, the final step is so you have to be baptized, have first communion, and then have confirmation, right? I did not take confirmation. I willingly said absolutely not. And, one of the biggest things about that is that I went to a really good friend's confirmation, and people in his family got him promise rings and all this thing. And it was like really, really driving home the fact that they can't have sex now that they've been confirmed. And I was just like, dude, this is a fucking cult mentality. So I think that has
Mm.
to be the official answer when I was absolutely done because I did not get that final step and that, had a huge effect later in my life.
Okay. Yeah. Same. There was, and this was in the Mormon church. This was like young women's, and there was this process you kind of had to go throughout those years to get like this necklace, and it was this step of growing up, and you're can be married now, which is kind of fucked up, but I never completed that, and that was kind of the first step of me kind of rejecting it. And that's why right when I turned 18 and I was pretty much given permission to do whatever I wanted at this point in my parents' lives, they've kind of backed up from it as well. And they thankfully respected any choice that I made. So that was really nice to have support from them in whatever choice that I made. So I decided to stop going. And that was about the same time I left as well. It's kind of crazy how they're a little similar in what ways. And what you said about it being cult-like, I remember when I would be in high school and people would say, isn't the Mormon religion a cult? And I would be like, no, that's crazy. Of course not. But as I got older, I'm like, holy shit. Honestly, there are so many levels of healing I've had to do just when I came out of that. I had to unlearn so many things. I realized, like, I had this issue of being, like, overly polite. And my friends, especially when I got out of church, would notice it and would be like, you don't need to be like that. And I didn't realize until a few years ago that it was the church that taught me to be that way. Because I met a girl who also left the church and also had to unlearn that. And so it was funny because she's the one that pointed me out. And I feel like I don't look like I'm Mormon anymore. I got piercings, I got tattoos, I don't dress that way, but she just kind of met me and immediately, are you Mormon? I was offended. It's like, what? How? No, I used to be, but she was like, well, it's because of your demeanor and you're overly polite. And I had to unlearn that myself. At least that's what she told me. And we had a whole conversation, and then she kind of helped me realize, like, holy shit, I have to unlearn some stuff. And honestly, from when I left until that, that time in my life, I just never thought about it. I just kind of rejected it. I never actually dealt with the trauma.
Yeah.
I never actually dealt with it. So I had to learn, like, over the years, I had to learn how to not dress like that. I had to learn how to be okay with my body. When I was about the ages of, like, from 21 to 25, I started to accept my body for the way it was. And I started to just relish in my sexuality, my feminine energy, and really discover myself, that I never had the time to reflect and look back and reflect on what it had actually put me through. I had blocked a lot of stuff out, like you did.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm ever going to dive into that. I think that I've got to an okay place without going into all of it like you have, but I'm glad that you were able to and come out on the other side.
Yeah. Have you ever, like, reflected and looked back at it? Like,
just about the people
maybe,
and how shitty they were, less about, like, myself
right.
and how that shaped me.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I was kind of forced to look at that in a way, which I guess is a good thing. I had to learn that, but I guess maybe it's the Mormon religion itself. It kind of totally warped my perception of my identity entirely. And I almost had to relearn everything, which was what I spent my 20s doing. And I'd say I came out better in the end. I mean, I'm definitely a lot wiser than I was back then. And I feel like, go ahead.
I think the biggest difference between you and I is that while I was technically raised that way, it kind of stayed at school or at the CCD classes where you were in it 24/7. So my parents weren't strict about it. The strictest thing would be that we would actually go to mass. But other than that, it wasn't very frequent that we went to mass anyway. And other than that, there really wasn't anything. And a lot of the times when we did go to mass, my mom was like, you went to mass this week. We don't need to go in. We're just going to go for the communion. So we'd show up 50 minutes into the mass, just get the communion and leave. So that's definitely a much different approach to how you were raised. So while it is a core part of my identity, I don't think it, like, it's woven much differently than you, where it's like, for me, I can remove the stitch, I think it was who you are.
Yeah, unfortunately. And a lot of the girls I was going to church with had it worse than me. See, at least I was a little rebellious, especially between the ages of 16 and 18. I began to be a little more rebellious. I began to, try to figure out myself a little more. I would make friends outside of the church, and a lot of my church friends didn't like that, but I craved it. I was like, no, I want to meet other people. I want to explore the world. I don't want to just be stuck in this one, because it was a world. We're going to seminary every morning before school. We're going to church probably twice a week. We're going to activities that are meant for the youth to fill up our time, honestly. So and it's at home. It's all over the walls at my house. It's,
oh my God.
Jesus was looking at me everywhere I turned, like, popping his head out. Like, that's the world I grew up in, and I I didn't realize how much it was, like you said, woven into me, because I was in a world, and I had to take myself out of that world, and I guess I did a lot of learning along the way. But I always forget that, and sometimes I remind myself, I think about it, how heavily it was in my life, and it really was a world that I lived in.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, and which is why it feels so cult-like.
Definitely. Yeah, it is crazy to think about. Well, this is a pretty good discussion. I think we'll probably start wrapping it up, because it has been a lot of your time I've already taken up, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about on this topic?
I think we hit a lot of points.
Yeah,
I don't think we hit everything. But we can sit here and talk for hours if we wanted to about that.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'd say it went really well, and nothing is definite. This is all, we're all evolving and changing, and
hopefully.
Yeah. Hopefully, I hope so. Like, fucking for real. I know, it's, yeah. But like I said, I guess, like, the last thing I would hit on with at least religion as whole is it is limited. You are limited to what you can think. And that's my last thing on that.
Yeah, definitely, that's true. I will say that is one really good thing about having friends that were outside of the church, because one of my best friends for a long time was Muslim, and while again I stand by, there's no way I could ever be a part of that religion personally. It is really good experience to have different cultures, not necessarily thrown in your face, but have an exposure like that.
Right, yeah. All right, it's good to have ideas and perspectives outside of that. Yeah. But we'll end it.
Definitely. But yeah, thank you for being here. I think that was really, really good episode. I think it was a lot of fun, and we can definitely do it again. And maybe next time we'll talk about a topic that isn't so serious, and we can just bullshit the whole time.
Right. For real. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for being here again, and thank you for always introducing the show. We appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody's glad to have a female voice once in a while on here.
Good, I'm glad.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.